Hello, Internet, people that don't know us. We opened with that little clip package type thing so that people watching would know that we have a little bit of a background in wrestling, that we're not just people complaining without any knowledge of the subject matter. I used to wrestle as Lee Kazlow back in the day. I was trained by Steve Kern, Billy Kidman, and Norman Smiley at WWE's developmental school, their old one, FCW. I also trained under Mr. Hughes and Elix Skipper. Wrestled all over the world for about a decade.
Yeah, so I was a professional wrestler there for about 8 or 9 years. My background, as far as who I was trained by, is more like the folks in DWL. Not two big, huge names. My main trainer is Nicholas Tide. That's the guy who taught me everything I knew for the basics, and then pretty much everybody else in every locker room ever, teaching me all those little fun ins and outs. So, and then for a while there, I worked for World Wrestling Entertainment as a network scheduling coordinator, and I basically was part of that team that launched the original WWE network before it moved over to NBC.
So I know people are still going to comment that like we're has-beens, we never made it, blah blah, and we don't
Yeah,
care. Like
yeah, no.
we both have careers that are so far away from wrestling now. It is completely irrelevant to us what you think of our wrestling or what you think of any of those things, because our whole goal in watching this was: is this accurate to independent wrestling? Is this accurate to how the wrestling business really is? And I know I've seen some comments where people say, well, Stephen Amell has wrestled before, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to point out that he has wrestled with WWE, with AEW, at the highest caliber of wrestling that's out there, meaning he didn't run an independent promotion. He doesn't know much about the grind and the hours that people put into it. I'm not saying his heart's in the wrong place, but I'm saying he doesn't know. So we're going to open with some 60-second or less reviews of what you thought of this first season of Heels. So I think Heels is a well-acted, drama-filled show about a supposed struggling indie promotion with a permanent venue, fully staffed, and a packed house nearly every week, led by Jack Spade, a guy so insufferable you can't help but root for anyone else but him. A wife that hates his extra spending one episode, falls head over heels for him the next episode, and then has a wake-up call and hates him like the rest of us. The show covers suicide, assault, scholarships, drugs, and no matter what the topic, the most insane thing that happens in the show is anything Jack Spade does.
So Heels is a show that's supposedly about a struggling wrestling promotion set in the mythical town of Duffy, Georgia. Run and operated by Jack Spade, the keeper of everything that is script. And by God, if you go off that script, you better watch yourself. I believe the show is definitely well acted. The actors are fantastic on the show. I highly recommend their acting capabilities. As far as everything else goes, we start going off the rails kind of quickly. So,
and let me point out too, if you watch this show and you love this show, keep loving it. I mean, that's great. I'm glad the show did that for you. My biggest thing has been, if you have any knowledge of how the actual independent wrestling scene or professional wrestling scene really works, you will not like this show because you will see so many flaws in their thing. That does not mean you're a fan of Batista. That does not mean you know about the wrestling business. I mean, period. Like, and that's the big problem, is so many fans go, I know about the wrestling business, but it's like, it's very different when you think you know a little bit, you read some terms, you understand, oh, they said kayfabe on the show, they know what they're talking about, versus what the reality is. I'm going to throw my first right or wrong out there to you, Bob, and I hope you have a few for me as well, but I'm going to start with my first one about the show. Right or wrong, in any capacity of independent wrestling, the booker/writer ever calls their storyline a script?
Absolutely wrong. At least not in my experience, as far as going around the independent circuit. Usually you have like a rundown or a call sheet, something like that, that gives you a basic outline of, hey, where your match is, what time you're supposed to be there, things like that. Never to the extent of where everything that I had to say was scripted out, nor
not even everything you have to say. Everywhere you have to move in the ring, every hold you have to grab. I mean,
never had to literally block out anything like that.
I mean, I'm thinking from my stuff with WWE to my little like hole in the wall indie shows I've wrestled during my time, the most was ever told to me is like, hey, you're going over dirty, use a chair, distract the ref. That's it. Like, there's never been like, and if there was discussion of a storyline, it'd be like, what do you think of this? And it would never be referred to as a script. I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe people who've never actually been in the wrestling business but have like worked for WWE and they've only been a script writer, that maybe they refer to it as a script. But no struggling indie promotion would ever refer to it as a script, nor would they map out everything.
Yeah, no, like I said, I've never heard of it as the script, and yeah, exactly like you, somebody would tell me, "Hey, man, go out there and just make sure you hit X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
as far as your finish," and then like some dude's just gonna
You
come
got
out and
10
do.
minutes, you got 15 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
All right, this is my big one. This is the big one that bothered me all season long, and I'm getting out of the way early. The treatment of valets. Is that correct? Or sorry, is that right or wrong as far as how they're treated?
that's a definite wrong. I had a couple on mine that you just checked off just from that. So wrong for sure that a valet can go in the locker room whenever they want. In fact, independent locker rooms are full of children, wives, cousins, fan that happens to know a referee. Like, they're just filled with dozens and dozens of people. I'm not saying there aren't locker rooms out there that would be a little more restrictive, but it wouldn't be restrictive that a valet couldn't be in the back. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way they'd be like that. And then, in addition to, there's even a specific time in the show where they ask Crystal's character, they say, or they ask her, "Hey, where's Ace?" And she's
Yeah.
like, "I don't know." And like, "Well, you better figure it out. You're his valet." That would never be a thing. Like,
Yeah.
valets could live in like Tennessee and be valeting a guy in Florida, and they never talked until the show. They have
Yeah.
no knowledge of each other. That would be a reasonable question if they were like married.
Especially the way it's like they're married to them, right? They're like a married
Yeah, yeah,
couple, but they're not married and they're like tied to him by the hip. I mean, anytime I ever had a valet, like I personally never had one, but like sometimes like, hey, dude, this guy's just gonna come out and manage you. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. Just
yeah.
come out and manage
I had
me.
a couple. Yeah, I had a couple situations like that where this person's gonna manage you, and I mean, I met them 10 minutes before they managed me, and they would just
Yeah.
be like, "Hey, so what's your thing? What do you do?" Like, it wasn't. And if somebody asked where I was and he didn't know, he wouldn't be held, like to get his ass kicked because he doesn't know where I am. Right or wrong, the Booker/Ryder would make himself a world champion of his own promotion.
That is right. That is
That is
100%.
something.
That is
Yeah,
100% factual.
yeah.
I
I
was
think they
guilty
got
of
that
it for a
right.
little bit myself. So when I ran my little fed there, I mean, who doesn't want to kind of be their own champion? But overall, that's a very common thing that you
Yeah.
see out on the indies. And sometimes they're decent. Sometimes they're the absolute worst worker in the world, and you're just like, dude, just hand it over to somebody else.
Yeah, and another thing they like to do as well is they'll book the names against themselves. Hey, we're
Yeah.
bringing in Rob Van Dam for our show. Oh yeah, he's wrestling me in the main event. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. So this one for me was funny. Practice and working your entire match before you go out and do your match.
No effing way. Like, maybe, and this is such a, like, for anyone listening, this is like the smallest percentage ever in the history of the business. Maybe if you're working someone who is so green, this is their first actual match in front of a live crowd. You've never talked to them before, and you just want to like make sure they're going to be good with doing what you're doing. But even then, it wouldn't be everything. Like, they're always
Yeah.
rehearsing all of it, like everything to a T. And just so people get it, like, you would plan out a spot and a finish. You wouldn't plan out, and then I'll take my left foot and step on one ring of the ladder, and then my right one will go up.
Yeah.
And at that point, you will sell your back and start like, oh my god, like
Yeah. Yeah.
memorizing that would be a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are times where you'll go out there and maybe you haven't run a spot before. You want to try something new. You'll go
Yeah,
out there before the show if you have some time and you'll work that with the person.
right or wrong, people would continue to wrestle for a promoter who hurt his own brother, and then his brother snapped someone's leg over a promo.
Wrong. It would be very hard. You stole one of my other questions there, so I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, absolutely not. If I was in a promotion and let's say we had a great show going on, which at that point, at least in that episode, everything was going
Yeah,
great. And
yeah,
then you go and you see, the promoter going out there just totally shooting on his brother. I wouldn't want to work for that guy. And then to
yeah,
jump onto that other portion there, when Ace is working Captain Green Guy, I have another question coming up after this for that.
okay,
But Bobby, which is a character I enjoy on the show. I think you
yeah,
enjoy him as well.
yeah.
But anyway, he just goes out there and just straight up like snap breaks somebody's leg, which the amount of pressure you would need to do that, by the way, I don't think is possible
By
in there.
someone the
But
size of Ace
yeah,
versus a guy the size of Bobby.
yeah,
Yeah,
like yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't want to definitely work Ace ever. I'd be like, screw that. This guy is unstable. He's
yeah.
unhinged.
He's a
And I don't think
loose
he'd ever work
cannon.
any. Yeah, I don't think he would even get work outside of that promotion ever again. Once
Yeah,
that hits the internet.
yeah. Agreed completely. Because he's. I mean, a guy's off his rocker enough to snap another person's leg because of a promo. I mean, it's insanity. The things that, like, the amount of people that should have been locked up by the end of this season is just
Yes.
insane. Like,
Yeah. Having somebody green in the ring doing moves they've never practiced before, and then on top of that, wrestling in the main event of your show.
no. Hell no. The only way that could potentially ever happen in wrestling would be if this name was a draw of some sorts outside of wrestling. And even then, they would probably be smart enough to put him in like a tag match or something. And what I mean by that is, like, if Will Smith said, "Yeah, I will wrestle in your wrestling show," you're gonna put him in the main event. He's a draw, and he would be. You'd want to keep him safe, and you'd want him to not hurt other people too. So you wouldn't give him a lot of time. But otherwise, a green guy who's just a wrestler with there's no way the dude's main eventing. There's no way.
You could even say somebody such as Stephen Amell himself, right? I mean, he had that treatment when he went to WWE.
Exactly.
So.
That's a perfect example. Yeah. He knew a couple little things here and there, but he got protected by his partner and the guys he was wrestling with. So my last right or wrong is right or wrong. A vet worker would show up with an ego and add himself to the main event.
That's definitely a true thing that he would try to do. Absolutely.
Try to do, yeah.
Yeah, definitely try to do. I had a question myself where it was like, would he force himself over into the main event after it has ended and go ahead and, just start shooting on everybody as far as promos goes?
And I don't think all vets, but there is definitely, and when we're referring to vets, it's kind of like the washed up vet that still wrestles the indies that definitely do that.
We're talking about the guy that you see the picture of, right? And it's like the picture from 1984, and then he shows up, and you're like, "Oh, mother of God!" The overuse of kayfabe, the way that they use it on the show.
Yeah.
Right or wrong?
It's not 1980, so wrong. You could get on Google right now and say, "Is wrestling fake? Is wrestling predetermined? Is wrestling whatever?" And you will find every answer you look for. How to take a bump? How to do a suplex? I mean, you name it. And they treat this like the internet doesn't exist, which I think the show would have benefited more had it been in the 1980s. They could have gotten away with a lot more stuff for accuracy, but he fed, like, his product is clearly shot towards marks, not smarks. Is that you would kayfabe to kids, and that's about it. You kayfabe to kids.
In the sense of this show, the struggling promoter, did they get that right or wrong in the show?
Big time wrong. Like, I mean, holy shit, wrong. Number one, a struggling indie promoter is probably renting a ring. And it's probably like a guy on a show probably owns a ring or knows a guy. I can get a discount if you book me. And he's like, "Okay, I'll book you." He has a permanent venue that's clearly paid off. And honestly, it's a fantastic venue. If you were an indie promoter and you had a venue like that, even if it was run down, you would be all over this thing. They got a great locker room. They got lights in there. They got a solid entrance. They got plenty of space for fans. They got an office that overlooks the ring. Like, I mean, no indie fed has that. If you want to see a more accurate representation, watch The Wrestler. Because in The Wrestler, the locker rooms are like, you got like a little kid, like, plastic chair. And like, people are like changing, sitting on like all mixed match chairs and benches and floors. That's how an indie background is, like, for a promotion. But then let's take it past that. This guy lives on the fucking Kent farm, and he's sitting here acting like, "Oh, we're struggling with money. I don't know. Sell this land you have, or sell this car, or get a smaller house." Like, I think they could have sold it so much better that they were struggling had he been living in an apartment, and the show opens with him getting like stuff underneath his door, past due for electric, past due for water, and he gets his check for whatever his shoot job is. And then he takes that money and puts most of it still back into the wrestling promotion. Then his wife gets mad. But instead, she's like bitching about a $60 smoke machine when they live on this fucking immaculate property in Georgia. Like, I mean, it's insanity. Which is what happens when someone in Hollywood, California, writes what struggling looks like. They write modern America as a struggling thing.
Alrighty, so in the world of wrestling, we know that it's, for the most part, it's fake, right? As far as everything that's done. But shooting on somebody, which for everybody that doesn't know what that means straight up actually like fighting or hurting somebody. Yeah. Right or wrong? Did they get it right or wrong?
They definitely got it wrong. It does happen. absolutely does happen. I've seen somebody who was working the wrong side shoot on somebody in the match. I've seen somebody who stiffed me with an unsafe like forearm that I got my receipt and got back and hit them, harder than I normally would have. Shooting does happen for sure, but the way they did it is it's insane. I mean, he tries to Jack tries to legitimately break his own shoulder, his own brother's shoulder, arm, whatever. I also think him shooting on him like that, the ref might have, like a good referee, seeing that you're legit hurting this guy, would have been like, hey, break it up, and like pushed him off of him. Instead of just standing there like, hey, you're actually hurting him. I'm just going to stand here like a jackass watching a guy that I know personally get his arm broke. And then, of course, let's go even further. Like, you snap a dude's leg. You literally snap the bone out of his leg.
And he had nothing to even do with it too. It's like it's all petty, weird stuff that had nothing to do with like the wrestler. Like everything I've ever
to do with it.
Yeah, everything I've ever encountered would be, something that happened in the match between you two, and it's just kind of like, maybe you're not hitting somebody hard enough. They're like, come on, hit me, man.
You fucked up two spots in a row, and now I'm annoyed because those spots we planned are shit now. Yeah. So I think they got it right that shooting happens. They got it wrong on execution big time. And like I said, I know the comments, if anyone's watching, they're just going to be shitting on it because they don't listen to the part that if you don't know about wrestling, you probably love it. You probably love it.
Oh, yeah, because the way you're titling it is immediately the title is going to trigger everybody.
Well, the thing is, the show's acting is great. When wrestling is not on the show, when that is the back burner, the show's amazing. The show's great. The acting's fine. It's nothing about that. It's just the wrestling stuff is what they got wrong, and they got so much of it wrong.
I guess it would be is Charlie Gully and his obsession with the DWL overall, right? I think that's kind of where we might start with, because to me that seems to be the most.
Because once we finally really see, like when we just hear about him, it's like, okay, rival promotions, that kind of stuff does happen. When I was on the Indies, there was different promotions in Texas that hated each other. They would always try to go against each other. And that happens everywhere. But when you hear about this promotion trying to go against him, he wants to buy Duffy. He wants to do anything he can to stop it. And then you see later as the show goes on, dude, this guy has a helicopter, and he lives at the fucking Playboy Mansion, and and why would he care about this promotion? It is mind blowing to me that he would it would be and just so people fully understand who might have seen the show and are trying to say, what do you mean they're fighting in it would be like Vince McMahon right now in 2021 going, hey, Ring of Honor cut a promo on me. I hate them. Let's bury them. Let's destroy them. Like, he wouldn't care. Like, it's crazy.
I found that to be probably the weirdest thing. I mean, at first you kind of say, okay, it's a rival promotion. And then, another thing is they have all the stock footage of old TNA stuff.
With the turnbuckles.
Yeah, all done. Which is funny too, because later on, as you know, we see their arena and it's a regular four-sided ring.
And there's TNA footage that exists of four-sided ring today, and even when they were in the Impact Zone. Which is
and to me, as I think because folks, we talk about this, we talked about this stuff for weeks. That's why we decided to do this. At one point, we said, why not just they have the setup for the FWD. Why not just have some local indie guys come out and, work some shoot matches and just go out there and do whatever, just to grab some footage for those little clip packages. Because I know at least if I was one of those guys back in the day and somebody said, hey, we're looking for local talent, it's going to be used
on a show for stars.
I would have jumped all over it, and I don't care. I'd have done it for a hot dog and exposure, which is another thing. So.
I do want to touch on. We talked about kayfabe briefly, but I want to say this before I forget. The kayfabe mentality is so insane to me too. How you talked about the guy smoking in front of the venue and him losing his mind, and he's all about kayfabe. The fans, you got to stay a face outside, but he works at a local lawn care store as a floor salesman in the same city he runs out of.
How
insane is this?
And we're led to believe throughout the entire season that this is a small town. Everybody kind of knows each other. Everybody's showing up to the wrestling shows. They're tailgating at the wrestling shows, which doesn't happen. Sorry, that's a wrong. Throwing that in there.
Yeah,
The tailgating.
This isn't Friday Night Lights in Texas, guys.
Yeah.
This ain't high school football days.
Yeah, I mean, they got people out there. I mean, everybody knows everybody. So the fact that he's worrying about kayfabe when they're at church, when they're doing this, they're doing that. Everybody else does it, but here he is being the worst lawnmower salesman.
Easy fix for the riders. It would have just been he works at this lawn care place to make money because he's a struggling indie promoter, but he works in the back as a stalker.
Yeah.
He's not a floor salesman, and that's the thing too. He sucks as a floor salesman, but he's the guy who sells the DWL to everybody. I mean, can we talk about the staff? They're like fully staffed. That never happens at indie shows ever.
Usually like, the person, doing tickets at the fronts, maybe the promoter's wife and some family members of the wrestlers, some of the closer guys, because obviously every Fed has kind of like a core group of guys, and they're usually all local, those guys, and then they'll bring in some folks from all over the place, and usually it's them, their families, doing the merch, if there is merch. In fact, they're peddling their own merch. There'll be wrestlers out there at intermission peddling their own merch. This place, they have a whole, wall setup, this whole thing like you're at WWE. Which any Fed, if they had that, would be amazing, but doesn't happen.
That's what you have to keep remembering if you're watching this and you're saying, well, I've seen Feds that have that, or I've seen Feds that have that. This is supposed to be a struggling indie promotion. Struggling, and you don't really get that vibe. Yeah, exactly. That they can't pay we're running out of this. We're not be able to pack the dome anymore. All this crap. Again, it's what happens when someone from Hollywood writes what struggling looks like because they've never actually been there. And being there is, I'm wrestling as much as I can this month, and I'm going home with negative $300 because that's how much I'm going to have when I finish this week out. When I finish this month, is I'm going to have spent everything I got on gas or food going to venues, and I come home with nothing but, hey, I had my matches. That's what real struggling on the indie scene looks like.
Yeah, one of the things, just touched on the struggling portion, is literally they're talking about how they haven't sold out the dome and they haven't had people in the upper decks, and then the very next show after the thing where they're not supposed to have anybody, the place is packed out. I get it, it's for aesthetics, but for me, at least as a filmmaker, I would say, all right, listen, after that incident, right, we're gonna have 12 people in this entire crowd. Show that there's actually some sort of stakes on the line.
Yeah, I think something that would have made this show sell a lot better too is opening with the 80s stuff, and then when it cuts to present day, there's 14 people out in the crowd, let's go, Duffy! One or two people that care. And then you would be let's see them build to their moment to shine.
Yeah, you want to root for these guys.
Right. And that's the problem with the show is Jack is so constantly awful, not as a heel awful, not oh, he's a great heel because he's a terrible heel. He just walks out to the ring. He's better at being a heel in real life for the shit he does to people than his character. You don't want to root for him. The whole show, the entire show, every time something happened that was going to put Jack in a bad spot or the competition or his wife, I would always be yes, fuck you, Jack, you suck. And that's not what they wanted. I know they wanted you to want to root for them to succeed, but I didn't. The whole time I want Jack to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it as the same way. They want you to try to make them succeed, but I'm looking at them from my experiences, and I'm I would have murdered for these types of opportunities that they have. They have a packed house every week. They have the ability to charge people to park, which doesn't happen. All these things, all these amazing
things. They have one belt for the whole company, which is just odd.
Well, there's only 5 wrestlers in the company too, to pay attention.
Good point. Yeah.
Until the last episode, then all of a sudden everybody comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Thank God for CM Punk.
But I will say Punk and Mick Foley's parts were great, but there's no surprise because they're actual fucking wrestlers and they know the game. They're, so if there was something stupid written for their character, they probably said, yeah, he should probably do something like this. And they probably just said, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not doubting that, of course, CM Punk and Mick Foley and anyone else, whoever is involved in the show, is going to promote the hell out of it. They might have had fun and all that, but just didn't get I even looked this up just for shits and giggles. For Jack to have spent as much as he did on tissues on Amazon, it would have given him 146 6-packs of tissues if he bought them. So why did he buy so many for the dome that draws 300 people max?
Named wrestlers that have showed up on this show. I know some folks might be well, I'm pretty sure that they think it's awesome because of whatever, but you also got to remember when it comes to production, they only see a part of what's going on too.
They weren't there for a whole day.
They're not there for a whole day. They're not there when they're shooting the other scenes that, Jack's daddy beating him up and shooting on him outside of a car and all these other things. They're only seeing what's there at that time. And you know, they don't really see the finished product until there's a finished product. So down below, there's going to be people saying, "Well, Mick Foley and CM Punk were there, and they know about wrestling." Yeah, they do. They know
Yeah.
far more than me and A List over here.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they weren't there for the entire production process.
I do got to say, the best thing in this entire show, if you haven't watched it or if you have watched it, is Crystal and Bobby's relationship. But of course, they fuck that up by snapping his leg, and then they just leave it alone. They don't touch on it anymore, which is crazy, because that was the thing that was hooking me to watch every week after that. Is I was like, well, Crystal's interesting, Bobby's interesting. Let's see where this goes. And yeah, they didn't really.
Yeah, and from what I understand is they led us to believe it was only like a month or so away, or a month or two at the most.
And he's just walking around with a boot, like, yeah.
He refs the main event at the
he would have been in a wheelchair. Fair. He would have been in a wheelchair.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. Oh yeah, the actors and the acting and the drama portion overall I think is fantastic. When they tie in the wrestling stuff to it, where it's, you know, gets a bit weird, like Daddy Spade basically shooting on his son outside of a car when he's just trying to help promote the Fed better. Yeah. Or when you know, they're younger. This is the last episode where Daddy Spade starts throwing Jack around in the backyard, and it's I'm what do you say? He said, "This is I'm coaching, or I'm training, or whatever he's saying." Some
stupid shit. Yeah.
To me, like the dad character and the kid character, I would have loved to have seen more of that in the show. To kind of see like how maybe his disillusionment of what the business is kind of shapes them.
Again, another time in the show when we talking about the finale, his wife leaves to go to a friend's, and once again, I'm like, let's go. Another thing against Jack, because he's that insufferable of a human on this show.
So the whole angle with the wife to me was started out like, okay, and you think that it's more along the lines of the family and him being neglectful of the family and putting the DWL first, which he does. And then we have that one conversation where she's just like, "I just want something for me." And I'm like, that's it. That was this big breaking point, is you want something for you. So she's like happy with her Piggly Wiggly job. So then they're all happy again. And then she gets a little bit angry because now she's, you know, she's gone full blown like detective mode, and she discovers these certain type of you know, tissues. Because you know, you're gonna notice the exact tissues that were used at a show you weren't at.
Yes, I have tissues from the same place that you fucking work.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. And holy shit, insane.
So then it morphs into this kind of lying thing. And then at the end, now we finally kind of get to the point there where she's like, finally, it's about the family and you know, not caring about us and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, this is something that I thought was coming like in that, like forever, 4 or 5 episodes ago when she had that conversation. And then the weak, like, explanation of everything, like, well, you know, Ace was calling somebody fat and this and this. And then he told me, I hope I shoot myself. And then, like, for that still any reason to still be, you know, a piece of crap to your wife.
And the bizarre thing is that, one, I don't know anyone who's been married to somebody in the wrestling business that wouldn't tell their wife, "Hey, so I'm going to buy a bunch of tissues so we'll start doing the cry thing to him." And guess what? A normal, sane wrestler named like Ace would be like, "Oh, that's great. They're going to hate me." Like, if I had that happen to me on a show, whatever, I somehow got hurt enough where I cried and I became a joke to them, I am eating that up for the rest of my career there. I'm coming out. I'm crying when I win. I'm crying when I lose. I'm stubbing my toe and crying. Like, I'm milking that to death so they can throw the tissues. But he's so like, I have to be a face. Like,
yeah, I've never seen you know, somebody so obsessed. Like, even obviously it's writing into character, but nobody in the business I've ever seen is like, I have to be a face. I have to be a face. Oh my god, I have to be a face. You have to love me.
The finale when old timer Hacksaw Jim Macho Man Duggan goes and talks to Crystal. He says, "Christ almighty, I forgot how much poor folks hate admitting when they fucked up," which was hilarious. Oh, we're going to have a 3-way ladder match. Oh, great. With the guy who shot on his own brother and snapped his arm, who has no fucking personality. He walks out just like this and gets in the ring. He does literally nothing. Versus Ace, the guy who snapped a guy's leg because someone said something mean to him and he cries in the ring. Versus some old-timey fuck that can barely climb into the ring. That's your crazy main event.
Yeah, crazy
so main event. It's so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You want to put the star power in there. He's supposed to be a name and whatever, and some promotions do that. I've seen things where they
CM Punk in there.
I'll tell you, my favorite part of that finale was that tag match with
because he's actually a wrestler. So
he's actually so it's always fun to watch him. And then of course with, I forget the other character's name, but the guy who who retired because for whatever reason his wife was having a baby, so he can't go once a week to wrestle at this wrestling promotion that's 2 minutes from his house. That was another weird thing with the show, but that I enjoyed that. Anytime I see Punk in the ring, yeah, like, and that's the big plan, by the way. Like, the guy comes to your Fed, he embarrasses you, and like I said, like I remember we were talking, I was like, what would have been really good was is like while they're having the best night of their lives at the state fair, they're doing whatever, they go and they just torch the dome, right? Like they just like he just sets that place on fire, and like the season ends, everybody comes back, and then like boom, you know, like it kills the damn mood, right? But no, his big plan is to pay people like 300 people to start a Jack chant and throw tissues, because you know he's like, I know about the tissues, and this will be it. And it's just to me like,
and his big story is they'll go against Jack's storyline, so that'll be the thing that sets him off.
Yeah, but clearly he hadn't seen the revelation that Jack has now found Jesus, and he's super happy all the time, so it doesn't matter.
Did you know this is an interesting rule? If there is a ladder match going on, anybody can climb up and grab the title belt. It does not matter if you're in the match. It doesn't matter if you valeted somebody to the ring. You can just climb up and take the belt, and you're the champion. It's great rule they have at good old Duffy.
Yeah, apparently, when you're the valet / manager, I think she transitioned for this, right? She was like a valet manager. It was different. It was different than a normal thing, because managers are treated differently than valets.
Like I do like that she got the belt. Like that's one positive to ending the season. It's like, cool. The one woman on this show who has put on the best looking wrestling for this entire show, she gets the belt. Okay, cool. But that was their only setup. There was no
there was no build to it. You know what I'm saying? It would have been cool, like if they maybe decided, because for whatever reason in this Fed there's no women wrestling. It's like unheard of. This takes place in today's day and age, guys. It does not take place in the past.
I thought they were going to go the route with him when he gives him this stuff, and he's like, hey, this could lead to diarrhea, heart failure. I thought he was going to die. I was like, oh shit, they're gonna go there. They're gonna let this guy die in the ring. Holy fuck.
Yeah, that's still that would have been a fantastic piece there too. That's another thing that could have led there, like with that spot where Bill goes all over the top, right? Boom, he hits the ground and then he just doesn't get back up. They continue the match whatsoever, and then they're like, hey, this guy just died there, and people are like, oh my god, and then that could be buzz.
And then there's and then there would be another negative strike to the DWL, because they had a guy die at their big state fair thing. The state would be like, you had a guy die at our show, we can't have you guys come back. Like, what?
The idea that one can use their cell phone to create cinematic amazingness is something that just irks the ever living hell out of me.
That's not a thing.
The scene where they do the promo inside of the the thing. I mean, I like the concept. I mean, it's something I'd love to shoot. But the fact that it's all being taken from one cell phone continuously, all these things happening.
Yeah, that person missed their calling in life. Just go be a production guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's got and then they're looking at it, right? And it's got color grading. It's got everything that you need on it. I mean, the audio's fantastic. I've never had
a cell phone camera.
Yeah. I mean, I wish our DSLRs were as good as this cell phone camera.
Yeah, for audio.
Independent workers, maybe just go to a local indie Fed in Georgia, right? Just go in and have somebody in there from production who's nonchalant, maybe talk to some of these guys beforehand. There are a million shitty indie promoters that would be killing to freely give you advice for
not
your
even
show.
Shitty ones. I guarantee if they approached Ring of Honor and said, hey, we're shooting this show Heels, the second season starring XYZ, we wanted to see if we could come to a couple shows just to get some insight to the business there. So to close this out, I'm going to tell you my first person I'm giving the MVP award to for this show, and it's Crystal. That's who gets my MVP award. What's your vote for MVP?
I think the real MVP character-wise is probably Crystal, and I'll give the runner-up to Bobby. For me, those were the most interesting characters, most development. Bobby went in, super green. He's still kind of super green, but his character has progressed from, at least when we first saw him, to now, where I feel like
he was painting himself green or some shit in the first episode or something bizarre. I think Ace could have gotten MVP had they done a little more realism in his development, but they made him just like a psychopath for the first half of the series. So that's why. And Crystal's character was consistently good. My LVP, to no surprise to anyone who's made it this far in this video, Jack fucking Spade. Holy shit, LVP. Yeah.
All right. So initially Jack was going to be my LVP up until this last episode. My current LVP, Jack is the runner-up for it, obviously, but it's got to be Gully of the FWD. The reason why I think he's the LVP is because literally you have all this money at your disposal. You're being a giant dick this entire season, and the best thing you can come up with as a comeback after getting beaten down in your own federation is to go to their show, chant Jack. And throw tissues at people.
Yeah. Okay, so what is one thing, you can pick one thing on this entire show you can change? I can go first if you want.
Yeah, go first. I got to process. I didn't write that one down.
Completely scrap. Yeah, no, I want to put you on the spot. Completely scrap the use and terms and writing of anything that involves, I got to write the script. Anything that can remove that from the equation for the show, that is my one thing I would change. To anything else, to a different scene, instead of him typing on his little fucking laptop, guy grabs armbar, puts it behind his head and twirls around, like anything. I'm working on the storyline. That would have flowed better at least. And
the one thing I would probably change with this would probably be this whole the nonsensical rivalry with somebody that's out of your league, right? I think that if we take FWD and we bring them down to kind of like we're a little better than Duffy, I think that to me will do a heck of a lot more than this idea that, you know,
yeah, he's a baller. He's loaded.
Yeah, like you know, you got a dude with a mansion and unlimited amounts of money.
Helicopter.
He flies to your venue and poster the fancy paper, right? The card stock. Card stock, yes, the card stock. You know he's loaded because he has card stock.
Because us as the viewers didn't know he was loaded because he flew it in a fucking helicopter,
and he flew it too. So it's not like he had somebody fly it.
Yeah.
So I think if paring that down to a more reasonable, rivalry to me would make more sense, and it would be a lot more lucrative, I think, as far as Ace wanting to join and things like that, because they're local. They're doing their best too, things of that nature, as opposed to I'm super loaded. And
if they get a second season, I hope to God they actually ask some wrestlers, not just for advice on accuracy, but for the actual wrestling we see on the show. We need some stuff that looks decent, because most of it looked horrible, and it wouldn't take much to find loads and loads of indie guys that, so instead of me getting a hot dog this weekend, I'm going to get $500 from a movie studio and I get to do 3 bumps for they're going to be all over it, like all over it. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, people that are out there have already disliked it, but if you still listened all the way to the end, I don't want there to be a season 2 because it was horrible. This show was a fucking abomination to the wrestling business. It was horrible. I don't want a season 2. I want it to just end there, wrap it up, and call it a day. But if there is a season 2, and by God, we'll be back here again, probably roasting it apart. I hope we can just praise it, but I don't think they're going to change.
Yeah, I like I said, I think if they can get the right folks in there to kind of bring it down to a reality a little bit better, I think we'd be good to go. Because a lot of the things I've read is it's praise. Oh, it nails the vibe. It doesn't really nail anything. And I think that's just because it's just people who are reviewing it that have never been to any of this as well.
And that's what I used to tell you too when we were first watching it. We were like 3 or 4 episodes in. I was like, what is the story doing? Where are they going?
Yeah,
it's just like we're just here.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we have a more coherent story. Like we didn't learn like what the point of the season was. The point of the season was to get to the state fair to have this, have this amazing show and do good. Obviously, at next season, if there is one, we don't know what that is because literally, Mike O'Malley, Gully guy, gets clotheslined. He's on the ground.
All we know is Crystal's the champion now. That's
all we know. Like it didn't really build to anything else other than Mike O'Malley's pissed. I'm like, is he defeated now? Is he going to leave him alone?
It would have been better if they, from the start, were saying in 6 weeks, where this fair is going to decide if they want to use us or Dystopia for their show. They're going to decide. Then it would have been like, oh, where's this going? Who's going to win? And then it would make sense for both promoters to hate each other, to be against each other, and then especially after he's the one who won it, then it'd be like, damn, well. But again, the only thing we know continuing forward is Crystal is now their champion.
Like you, I enjoy torturing myself. I've said it a million times.
You watch so many shows that are terrible just to watch, and they're terrible. You're like,
I know they're terrible. Like the season of Titans has just been a struggle. But I would like to see them get a season 2, hopefully, and improve upon what they've they've done here and bring it more into line with what actually happens, kind of independent wrestling. So obviously, probably not going to happen if they do get a season 2. It's wishful thinking. Maybe somebody will see this video and they'll burn the place to the ground. If I see that, I'm just letting you know. If I see something get burnt down in the second season, I wrote that. I want credit.
And so if you guys enjoyed this, comment below. I know most of you didn't, so still comment below. Go ahead and hit that dislike button because you probably already did. No, but honestly, this is just our thoughts from people who've been in the indie business, and I know people are the majority, in my opinion, are probably going to be so against this because we are going against the grain, which is the main reason we decided to do this, is because we saw so many people praising, they get the wrestling right, they do so much stuff, it's so accurate to that world, and we're just like, it is. So yeah, that's our reasoning behind it. And if there is a season 2 and people do enjoy this, or if they hated it enough to still watch to this part, I guess we'll have to do another one. Until next time.